You know, life has a way of surprising us. We've all had unexpected moments that really end up impacting who we are. I'm Chavie Brooke, and let me tell you, I've had my fair share of these moments. On Totally Unexpected, I don't just interview my guests. We have long, meaningful conversations to explore the twists and the turns that change their lives. You won't only be hearing from the guest, you'll be hearing from me and my thoughts and reflections, just as I would be doing in real life. These aren't traditional interviews, they're conversations about struggle, growth, and the moments that make us human. We all just want to feel connected, at least I do. And if we end up feeling a little less alone, that would make me so happy. Welcome back to Totally Unexpected. I'm actually super excited to be here. I had a little break in recording over Pesach, and I missed my microphone. I missed my little space, and I'm really excited to be here. This week's episode is going to be great. Can't wait to introduce the guest to you. But before then, I wanted to share just the happenings and the going on in Totally Unexpected land. So just so you know, new episodes for Totally Unexpected drop every other Monday. I also have a Substack where I write a new essay every other Tuesday, but there are essays that drop every week. Some are archived, some are new. So every Tuesday, Substack, every other Monday, podcast. You can subscribe to Substack. It will come straight into your email. You can subscribe to podcasts, and then you get notifications when a new episode drops, so you don't have to figure that out for yourself. And we are now also on YouTube. The clips and the little reels, you can kind of get a feel for the episode on YouTube. At the end of the episode, we're going to be doing our voice note section, which is so fun. This week's all about all things bar mitzvah, because that's definitely top of mind. So without further ado, today's guest is Elin Cohen. We met on Instagram, which is so fun. Maybe I'll talk about a little bit about that later. But Elin is such an amazing, cool person. She grew up in Stockholm. She has a PhD in law from Stanford. She works in, I'm going to read this part because it's technical, but she works in international economic development, supporting the design and implementation of U.S. government foreign assistance programs. So she works basically in Africa and other third world countries to help bring assistance and aid. It's very cool. She talks a little bit about that on the podcast as well. She's also a CASA volunteer, which is a court-appointed special advocate for children who are in the foster care system. So that really speaks to my heart, and we definitely got to talk a little bit about that as well. But we are book buddies, and we got to know each other really well over the last couple years. And you'll hear all about our book buddy experience. And we also talk a lot about the books that we've read together and some of our favorite books. So this episode is really fun because we talk about one of my passions, which is books. And we have a whole 45-minute powwow about books. So I think this is going to be really fun. I can't wait for you to listen. Enjoy. See you on the other side. If you want to sponsor, please reach out. I think it's not a secret that podcasts are funded through sponsorships and advertisements. There's no secret way to go about it. And I would love to partner with all of you and any of you. Please reach out. All my contact information is in the show notes. And we're very grateful to all our partnerships and all our sponsorships. Welcome on my podcast. I'm so excited you're here. And not only are you here, you're actually here in Bozeman.
Here.
You're here. And It's really cool. We'll tell our story of how we know each other. It's just crazy that you're here in Bozeman and we're still not recording in the same room. We're manifesting a recording studio, guys, okay? Even when I recorded with my husband, we couldn't even be in the same room. So you're here and it's really exciting. How many years does it go back? Before like COVID time, right?
Well, I don't know about that. Well, maybe COVID time. So I found you somehow on Instagram. I don't know how. But, I think maybe it was during COVID because that was like a time when everyone was interviewing everyone, like it was
Mm,
just like, so I think that's how I found you. Probably followed someone who interviewed you. I'm not sure, but that's my guess.
okay, that makes sense.
And then we started to like message each other about all kinds of things.
Literally.
And then last year, I started noticing, well, I think I noticed for a while, but I started noticing that you would post pictures of books you were reading. And then I think you would say like 10 out of 10 or great book or something, but like you weren't,
I wouldn't share very much about the actual content of the book.
yeah, but you like showed a picture of what you read. And I noticed that we liked a lot of the same books.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of put that, you know, stored that away.
Stored that information.
Yes. And then like for me, what was happening was that my youngest is in his second year of college. And I had these conversations with my husband, like before, the year or two. So before he was leaving for college, how, we've met so many of our friends through our kids and schools and various activities and, shul and all these things.
Yeah.
And how I was really like, I was feeling that, just because now we don't have kids home full time anymore, it doesn't mean that I don't want to continue meeting new people. So I was like, okay, I'm going to like actively try to continue doing that. Like I'm not pausing meeting new people in my
Yeah.
life.
I
So
love
that
that.
was like, I had that kind of like consciousness, I guess.
Yeah.
And then part of also like, so I've always been reading a lot. I've always been reading a lot and I love reading. But again, as my like life was shifting and I have more time on my hand, I decided that I wanted to read more. I wanted to be more intentional with my reading, more intentional with like what books I'm reading. So I was started to listen to a number of different book podcasts.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I kept on hearing about book buddies and it sounded so fun. And I was like, what
Yeah.
is this book buddy thing? So it's basically you are reading a book together with one other person. And well, we
Yeah.
will talk about how we organize
Yes.
it.
We're going to get to our book buddy section.
Exactly. So like, how we do that. But anyhow, it sounded so interesting. And then so I just reached out to you and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, do you want to be my book buddy? And I was like, I'm gonna put it out there and see what happens. So why don't you tell me?
Yeah. It's so great. I keep sharing and having these experiences of how there's so much noise around social media and Instagram, and there's so many pitfalls that we can fall into. And I think also in my life, it has brought me so much joy and has allowed me to have relationships and create friendships with people that I would never have known or come across or had any access to. So
Right.
I'm always just so grateful that such a big piece of my Instagram page and my online life has brought me so many beautiful, rich friendships and relationships. And you are one of them. So we messaged for years, like just texting, like on and off. And whenever you would, I'd post something that you were interested in, or you had something to share about it, or you could relate to, we would always end up in these conversations. And then, like a year ago, you reached out,
Mhm.
and about a year ago, you reached out about being book buddies. And it was like an immediate yes for me. I was like, I don't know how this works, but yes. And I also love reading so much. I have like a list of books that I own, and I have a list of books on my notes app that I'm like needing to read. And sometimes I get so overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't have enough time to read all these books. But it's been such a fun experience. So, but we're going to give you a little treat at the end of this podcast or halfway through this podcast. We are going to talk about the mechanics of our book buddy and actually go through the books that we read and share a little bit about each book. So you can go away with maybe some new book suggestions or be inspired to find a book buddy and do this for
Mhm.
yourself. But
Yeah.
before we get there, I would love to hear a little bit about you as a person. You have
Yay.
so many different facets to your life, so many interesting things that you do and your family. So I think it would be so fun to explore that a little. So tell us and me, where were you born?
Hmm.
And a little glimpse on your childhood. Of course, we can't know everything, but something like formative or interesting about your childhood that is unique.
So I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay, already interesting.
Yes. So there is a small Jewish community in Stockholm, Sweden. A lot of people are surprised,
Yeah.
but there
I don't
is.
know why that's surprising. That doesn't surprise me at all.
No, I know. But again, I think you're Chabad. So you're not
I guess
surprised
that's
that there are
why, because I'm
Jews
like,
all
there's
over the
Jews
world.
everywhere,
Yeah.
like that's not surprising.
Yeah. I grew up within like 10 minutes of my whole extended family. So I saw, like, we were very close, and I saw my family, like extended family, a lot, including my grandparents, who always lived very close by. My grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and they were very, like, present part in our life. I saw them many times a week.
Ugh,
So it was really
I'm jealous of that. Like
beautiful. Yeah.
people who get to live next to their grand. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but there's something so beautiful about that, like compound where a family unit type vibe, and it's more than just your like nuclear family.
No, exactly. And it wasn't, I think, like, it was, I mean, of course, we were visiting our grandparents, but it wasn't like we were visiting. They were at
Mm-hmm.
our house all the time. And like my
Mm-hmm.
grandma was doing stuff in the kitchen, and I was over
Yeah.
there. And actually, I have one. So one of my aunts, my mom's older, one of her sisters, had children later in life. And it was such a treat for me because I got to spend a lot of one-on-one time with my aunt, and she lived in the city, and I would do sleepovers with her, and it was just like, it was just me and her, and it was like
Oh,
so special, so special. So I
yeah.
still have a
Yeah.
very close relationship with my aunts, and when I am in Sweden, I make like a point, and I spend one-on-one time with them, or I go and see them at
Yeah.
their summer house. And anyhow,
Yeah.
so I have like a very close family, and I have two brothers,
Do they live in Sweden still?
and they live in Sweden. So my whole family, yes, they're
Is
all
still
in
there.
Sweden.
Everyone's there. Yeah.
Everyone's there. So both my brothers lived in other parts of Europe for another number of years, and then they moved back with their families to Sweden. So they're all
Okay.
very close by.
Yeah.
But as we were chatting before, and I think like one of the things that that I've been reflecting on now as
Yeah.
an adult, something my parents did that I
Mm.
really admire. I did not realize at the time. Well, two things. One was that my parents were kind of, they would never say themselves that they were crunchy, but they were kind of crunchy. We like grew lots of vegetables, pickled and jammed, and were like picking berries and fruit. And, they had three freezers, and just like, we just like made our own things and ate through the winters.
Like real farm to table.
It was very farm to table.
Like everyone who's trying to chase that now is like a trend. And it's like you grew up that way.
Yeah, no, I did. And it's not until as an adult, like, I really appreciated it. And
Hmm.
I would envy the kids who had like the Granny Smith apples, and I had the homegrown apples,
Yeah.
with like,
Did you have like the
yeah.
little tiny like crab apples? Is that what you grew? You know those ones that grow on like the little mini ones?
Yeah, no, I know. No, we didn't have those, but we had like a
Okay.
variety of ones that were delicious, but it wasn't
Yeah.
Granny Smith because
Yeah.
you could only buy those, and then they
Yeah,
were like
exactly.
nice and shiny and whatever.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Anyhow, so again, like looking back, they put a lot of energy into, that. But the other thing I've been thinking about is that, we had a very busy family life, as all do, and both my parents were working, and both of them had their own social lives away from, like, not part of the
Mm.
family. So my dad was on quite a number of different local boards, and my mom had a lot of different like women's groups, all kinds. So like from university, she had a Jewish sisterhood. She had like her knitting group, her like book, like she had a lot of different groups. And I just saw both of them taking time away and like allowing time for each other to do that.
Yeah.
And they were kind of
Yeah.
dividing and conquering. And then, I mean, now again, as an adult, I understand that that filled their cup.
Yeah. What a cool thing to be modeled. I think so often we are inundated with these like guilty feelings of like we have to be enmeshed with our family and everything has to be completely and utterly devoted to our children, and we can't have a life outside of that. Like mom becomes your full identity. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I mean, I think we all as moms always think about, are we good enough? And are we this? And are we that? And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's so healthy and it's such a beautiful thing to watch your parents have a life outside of you and to watch them fill their cup and to know that they have interests and they're taking the time to pay attention to them as a person outside of their titles. And I remember learning this from one of the therapists that were a part of our life at a certain period of time, very much. And I remember him saying that it's so important for your children to see that
Mm-hmm.
you're okay without them, in the sense of like, they aren't responsible for your happiness. You know how much pressure it is on a child to know that only if they're okay, you're okay? Like they have to know that they can be not okay and you're there for them, but also you don't crumble and you can be okay, even if they're not okay. And it's like kind of on that same line, right? Like you can have a life, like you can have interests, you can take time for yourself, you can fill your cup, you can do things that don't involve your children and still be the best mom. And probably that makes you be the best mom.
Right. No,
Yeah.
exactly. And no, and so but of course, like I wasn't reflecting on that as a child, but as a
As a
mom.
child. But as a mom now, you're like, oh,
Yeah, that makes sense. That made sense. So I really
yeah.
appreciate that they were modeling that. And also like they needed that. And
Hmm.
we'll talk more about this, but I think as raising a family, like, if the parents really are a team and are giving
Hmm.
each other that time and space to do these different things, I mean, then
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. It's just a stronger unit and everything else is just so much more solid.
And the other thing too, actually, was that, between me and my brothers, we were involved in a lot of after school activities. I played a lot of soccer. I played a lot of soccer. And my dad wasn't like, he would come sometimes and he did join like my soccer club's board. So that was kind of how he got engaged in my interest.
Yeah.
Because again, he liked being on boards. Like
Yeah.
that was a way for
You
him
like
that
being
he felt
involved.
he was involved and he was involved in our local community. My mom, on the other hand, she was very not interested. But she was very like upfront with that from the beginning. So I never expected my mom to come to soccer games. I mean, maybe
Hmm.
she came during like K through 12, maybe she came a few times. I have no real recollections
Hmm.
because she was like, I will make room in the family schedule for you to do what you need, like your sports. You will get there, your uniform will be washed. Like there was a
Yeah.
lot of other things that
There's a
she
lot of
made sure.
logistics involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was like, that is not my priority. And, she had a lot of other things she needed to do. So standing on the side of the soccer line, like soccer field line, was not something she was going to
Yeah.
do. So I think I was never really disappointed because I never expected it. And it wasn't that she
Yeah.
wasn't interested in me, but she wasn't interested in spending
For time there. Yeah.
3 hours standing out in the cold. Like that was what she wanted to do. And so I think that's powerful too, that
Hmm.
like it's okay. You could support your kids in whatever their interests are, but it doesn't mean that you have to be there present yourself. You can facilitate, but like there's a coach there. Like you're not needed.
Yeah. I appreciate hearing this so much and having this conversation because I actually very much relate to that. Whenever I hear parents or moms or dads say, I never missed any of my kids' soccer games, or I never missed any of my kids' sports games or competitions. And I'm in awe of that. And then I always feel like this pang of like, ooh, that's not my story. That's not how it is for me. And I think it's so nice to hear and to acknowledge that it's not possible or it's not everybody's story. Like, and I'll just relate it personally. Like my son Manny is obsessed with soccer or literally any sport that the school will offer, he will do. So whether it's like he spent 3 months in the fall going to basketball practice at 6 a.m. Just any sport that's available. And I actually am so supportive. I facilitate it. I think it's the best thing for him and his mental health. And there is a lot of logistics that are involved, but I am not at his games because
No.
I have so many other things going on. I have other kids, other responsibilities. And so my husband's the one that ends up being at his games or doing the shuttling and the carpooling back and forth. And I'm facilitating by holding down the home front and making space. And the fact that like my husband isn't around because he's with him. So I'm not at his games. And sometimes I'll usually try to end up at like a big championship game or like a couple times a season I will try to go, but it's not something that I do. And
No, and you don't need to.
and every once in a while, like I hear people be like, I'm at every single one of my kids' games, like every single one. I'm like, how do you do that? And then it makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong. Like, is this how it needs to be? And it's nice to hear life is life, reality is reality. Not everyone has a different reality. And you're not damaging your child if you don't show up to all of their games, especially when you are, like you said, facilitating, supporting, like laundry, time, effort, financially, like all those things show, like, I love how you differentiated, like your mom supported you and supported you during your interest. It didn't necessarily mean that she had to stand there in the freezing cold, which is how it is here too.
Yeah.
Watching the game. Like there's other ways to support.
No, for sure. And I will just say, like, with my kids, so they also played soccer. I watched a lot of soccer games because it's something I enjoy. Like, I
Yeah.
enjoy soccer. That's the
Yeah.
only sport I enjoy. My son, he was playing baseball probably for 3 or 4 years. I did not see a single game.
Yeah.
Not a single game,
You're like,
not a
I'm
single
out for baseball.
practice. I just don't enjoy it. And I didn't feel like it. But again, like I will make sure you get there. Uniform is washed, snack, like you have blankets because it's so cold, like all of that. But
Yeah.
I did not need to be there.
Yeah. It's just a lot of food for thought. So Sweden, I'm assuming, is a very cold climate. I feel like it's similar to Montana. Did you grow up skiing and like with winter sports?
Yes. So it's actually not as cold as Montana because it's on the
Mm.
coast
Okay.
and
Yeah.
outside, like outside of Norway, there's the Gulf Stream, which is a warm stream. So the water is actually
Oh,
warmer.
that's
So
interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah. So, and also Stockholm is on the Baltic side. So the winds are not as strong as if you're on like the Gothenburg and the west coast side of Sweden.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
I mean,
Okay.
so the winters were long. Like it was freezing, but it wasn't minus 30. Like it was,
Right.
it was like cold, but not. And we had snow. The winters are so in Stockholm in like December, street lights would go off at like 8:30 in the morning and then back on at
Oh,
3:15.
so Sweden has that crazy, like you had very little daylight in the winter.
Yeah, so it's short days. So we would go to school in the dark and then school would let out and it was dark.
Yeah.
Well, but the way like the school handled it was that recess was mandatory. You always had to get out, whether you wanted it or not. It was not an option.
Right.
Like the
Right.
building closed during recess. Like you had to be outside to get some daylight.
Wow.
I don't know. Have you heard about this Danish concept everyone's talking about? It's called hygge,
Yes.
Hyggge.
Yes. I didn't know how to pronounce it, but yes.
Hygge, yeah. So, like, there's a lot of that, which is like when it's cold outside, you're cozy indoors with your like fuzzy socks and your candles and your fire and your blanket and your hot soup. And so there's a lot
Mhm.
of that. Like, you light candles and you make it cozy.
Yeah. And I'm assuming in the summer you had very little dark.
Right. So in end of June, early July, the sun doesn't set, which is amazing.
Doesn't set at all.
It doesn't set. I mean, it kind of dips, but it dips a little bit again, like if you're all the way north above the Arctic Circle, it doesn't set. But like in Stockholm and where we are, it
Yeah.
dips, but not enough. Like, but it doesn't get dark. It just kind of boop and then bounce back up. So then you sleep with blackout blinds.
I was going to say, so how do you deal with that? Which is harder, always being daylight or always being dark?
Well, I don't think it, I mean, for me, for a lot of people, the dark is hard because it's
Yeah.
like, there's definitely like seasonal depression is definitely a thing. And I think the way to handle that is that you just need to get outside and get daylight. Otherwise, you're miserable.
Whenever the few hours that there is, you need to be out there.
You just need to get outside and try to, like, if you're working, trying to walk during your lunch hour or whatever. So, I mean, summers are amazing. And I feel like Swedes live for the summer. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
3 months of summer. Everyone's just like outside all the time. So we have a summer home, which is kind of like a compound, which is amazing. It's on a lake.
Mm.
There's like 100,000 lakes in Sweden. So there's lakes everywhere. So anyway, we have like the lake house. And then what's so fantastic about that is that there's multiple houses right next to each other. So like we're in a house, my parents in a house, my brother's in another house, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
Like
we're
a little
all so
bungalow. So
yeah,
fun.
exactly. So that's how
Yeah.
we spend like our summers. So one of my sister-in-laws, well, we'll get to that, but like so I married, my husband is American, my brothers married, their wives were from other European countries.
And you actually live in San Francisco, but
Yeah.
you spend your summers in Sweden, right?
Yes, exactly. So it was kind of part of our deal. My husband's and our deal was that
Yeah.
we live in San Francisco, and okay, we're in the US for this like part of the year, but I get the summers. Like the
Right.
summers are in Sweden. So we spend about 2 months every year in Sweden. And I mean, I love it and I get to be with my family. And also I felt for my kids, it was this nice counterbalance where
Mm-hmm.
we live in the city of San Francisco. So we live very urban life.
Yeah.
And then we have this very rural, very different lifestyle in the summer. And I loved having, we have like the
Yes.
cows outside the fence, like that's our
Right.
neighbors, so I love that we get to have both.
That's a real gift to be able to have a experience living an urban life and living a kind of a country life. Very often it's like one or the other. And it's very special that you facilitated that. So how did you meet your husband? He's American, you're from Sweden. Like, how did that happen?
So I will say, so my older brother went to Israel after high school. And he came back and was like, from. It was a little bit of a
Mm,
shock to my family system, but we like all adjusted and, found our,
groove.
everyone, like, yeah, kind of found our groove. And then as I graduated high school, and then while I was in college, there's a Swedish Jewish summer camp in the archipelago. It's gorgeous. So I was working there in the summers and I was getting like more involved in Jewish community stuff. And I decided, which again, if you live in a small community and you want to marry Jewish, it's not just going to happen. You need to make a very conscious decision.
Yeah.
So I decided that I wanted to marry Jewish. So I had like made that decision. But I wasn't looking to get married, but like I knew that when I'm ready to marry, I'm going to marry Jewish.
Yeah. Which was a real, like, you had to be really intentional about that.
Yes, exactly. So that was like and again, because it's like there's a small pool in
Hmm.
Sweden.
Yeah.
Okay, so then my brother got married. So my older brother got married, and his wife is from Prague.
Oh,
So the
cool.
wedding, actually very, very cool. So their wedding was in the Altneue Schule, which is, for people who have
Yeah.
been to Prague, is that like synagogue from the 1600s that you like have to walk down the steps to get to. And my
So cool.
grandfather, like his name is Al Shul. So their family is kind of part of that shul. So it was for my grandparents, it was really like a coming home that my brother got married in this like home synagogue of my grandfather's family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyhow,
That's
so that was
very
like
cool.
really beautiful. Anyhow, so my brother got married, and then at that point, so he was living in Prague. I did a year abroad in France during college. And then my younger brother was in Stockholm. And my brother and sister-in-law were going on their honeymoon like 6 months later. And they invited us to come along because like it was a way for us to see each other. And also like it was very generous of them to do. So we went to Egypt, we went to Jordan, and then
Oh
to
my
Israel.
gosh. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, we were like backpacking around. Oh, and then a friend of ours was part of the trip too.
Yeah.
So, like right before Shabbos, we're like zooping in to the Ascent Institute in Tzfat.
Oh, wow.
So we're like for the first Shabbat in Israel, that's where we're going to spend Shabbat. So we get there. I barely remember, but there was like an American guy hanging out in the lobby. He remembers that I walked in. I don't really remember him at that point. But
Yeah.
anyhow, he like spent, which ended up being my husband, but he spent this Shabbos with the Swedes. So he was hanging with us. And he, there was like a men's side and a women's side. So my sister in law and I were on the women's side. And then he was like bunking with my brothers. So got to
Just
like,
randomly.
yeah. Well, so what happened was that he was living in Kenya at the time. So my
Okay.
husband is an obstetrics gynecologist, a professor at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, and does research. So he was living in Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya at the time.
Oh my gosh. That's so cool.
And there's a direct flight, Nairobi, Ben Gurion.
Okay.
And he knew at that point that he wanted to get married. He wanted to get married Jewish. He had to go to Israel. Like he had
Right.
2 week
Right.
winter break or like break. And he was like, I'm going to Israel. And he was very focused. Like, I need to find, like, he
I'm going to
knew
find
that,
somebody. Oh my gosh.
well, he was like, I'm living in Nairobi. I'm not going to meet any Jewish women here. Like,
Yeah.
I need to put myself in places where I could actually meet someone.
Right. I have to be seen and I have I have to people have to know that I exist. And in Kenya,
Exactly.
that doesn't happen.
It didn't. Yeah, exactly. Well, I will say there is a beautiful Jewish community in Kenya, eh,
Mm,
but it's skewing older, so it's not a
yeah.
place to like meet young women.
Young. Yeah. Young
Yeah,
women for sure.
no, no. Anyhow, so then we spent this Shabbat together. It was great, and we were like, "Okay, nice to meet you," and like, bye.
Yeah.
And then the following day, we run into each other again in Akko. He pops up again. I'm like, oh, here you are again. What are the
Yeah.
chances? So we
Yeah.
chat a little bit. I don't know that he found out what our next stop was or not, but long and
All of a sudden
behold.
he's like, wherever you are, he's popping in.
So next we're going to Heritage House in Jerusalem. And there he is again. There he
Wow.
is again. So again, it's like, the men's side and the women's side, and he's bunking with my brothers again. So at this point, we're planning on being in Jerusalem for a week. I guess he like made that his plan too. So we spend a week
Okay.
together. And so we really get to know each other. Again, he's hanging with me and my brothers and sister-in-law like the whole time. He's just like tagging along with the sweets. That's his modus operandi, and to get to know
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Oh my
So at
gosh,
the
that's
end
so
of
cute. I love this
it's
story.
very cute. It was very cute. So at the end of that week, we knew each other enough to know that there is something here. And again, he was focused on getting married. So he was ready to like go.
Mhm.
He went for the mission and he's like, was mission
Oh my
completed for
gosh,
him.
like mission accomplished. I did
Yes,
it.
exactly. For me, like I had just turned 22. I had decided I wanted to marry Jewish, but I wasn't looking to get married.
Yeah.
So the other part of this was like he was American, he was living in Kenya,
Yeah.
and also there's a 14-year age difference between us.
Oh, fascinating.
which at the time felt really big.
Really
I mean,
big.
it felt really, really big. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, let's think about this. Like,
Yeah.
so we
You weren't like
decided,
jumping in 2 feet without
yeah,
pause.
I was like, we're going to like have to pause this idea. So we decided that we were going to be pen pals.
Oh my
And
God, I
this,
love that.
yeah. So at the time, again, like he was living in Kenya, I was in France. So we were emailing each other, but this was like very old school emailing where
Yeah.
it was like he had to download emails overnight. I didn't have email in my dorms. I had to like go to the library, type my little messages. So like it took several
Yeah.
days of like each letter, like letter to
To
make
get
it.
back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like snail mail.
Yeah. So then we do that. And we met in December. So that following summer, again, because like he was living in Kenya and his family was living on the West Coast, he was going to meet with his brother, sister in law, and father and travel somewhere in Europe. So they had
Mm,
decided that they were going to go to Italy. He was like, great. Then
mhm.
his brother sends him a message and says, change your plans. We're going to Prague. At first, my husband was like, "What do you mean? We're going to Italy. You can't just
Mhm.
change this on me." They're like, "No, we're going to Prague." Okay, so then like my husband had to get over that. And he's like, "Okay, well, it's more important for me to like be with my family than to
Yeah.
go to Italy." And then he's like, "Oh, Elin's brother is in Prague." He's like, "Okay,
Mm,
Prague sounds good. Let's go to Prague." So they go to
perfect.
Prague and they meet with my brother and sister-in-law like 2 evenings. They meet with them,
Yeah.
make a good impression. So
Yeah.
then we continue our little emailing. And then in the fall, my husband is like, what do you think? Now I was back in Sweden. What do you think about if I would come to visit you? And I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, well, let me check with my brother because he actually met his family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I like call my brother in Prague and I'm like, what do you think? Like, what do you think? Like, you met his family. What do you think? So he's like, well, he has a really nice family. And actually, my father in law always took credit for that we married because he feels like it was his doing that he's such a nice guy and my brother liked him.
It's like it's because of me.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I'm like chewing on it because it still feels like this is I think, well, I mean, to be honest, I feel like the reason I was so hesitant was that I knew that if I was going to say, yes, let's meet, that was
Mhm.
it. Like,
Yeah. You
we
knew there
kind
was
of knew,
something there. You knew
yeah,
you liked each other. And you're like, if I'm doing this, like, it's going to mean something.
yeah, it's not going to be like, oh, let's
It's not
see
going
if
to be
this is going to,
casual.
no, it's not going to be casual. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
scary.
yeah, so it felt scary. And I was like, how am I going to tell my mom that there's an American guy who is
Yeah.
14 years older than me? Like, so I was like, okay, so but then I was like sitting on it, I was chewing on it, and then I'm like, no, actually, this is really what I want. Like, and then I said, yes, you could come. So I sent my little email of like, yes, you could come.
Hmm.
I don't hear anything from him for a week. I'm like, you've been begging me for all these months that you want to come and now nothing? I'm like, what is this?
Oh
Turns
my
out
gosh.
he had first gone camping and then there was a power outage and he didn't get my message.
Yeah. I mean, somebody who lives in Kenya and who's traveling and you're having dial up emails, there's a good reason why he's
Yeah,
not
no,
answering
exactly.
right
But
away.
but then I had like I really feel like this whole thing was all very shared. But at this point, I was so invested. I'm like, he has to come. Like, he has to
Yeah.
come.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at that point, he came like 2 weeks later. And it happened to be that it was right at my birthday. So within the first 24 hours, he had met my whole extended family
Oh,
and
wow.
like all my friends. Because I had already planned like 2 birthday parties. So he visited for like 2 weeks. And at the end of those 2 weeks, like we knew. We knew.
You're just, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, how were you reconciling? Like, were you going to have to move to Kenya? Like, and how? I'm curious because, of course, at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be a big deal and it's not a big deal. But I do think like being 23 or whatever and marrying somebody 14 years older than you is significant.
It was. No.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts around it? And how did you decide that this is good, that this is going to work?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was like the scary part was before I said yes for him
Yeah.
coming to visit. And once he visited,
Yeah.
like I didn't think like it didn't feel
It
so
didn't matter
significant.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so he was living in Kenya. So we got engaged. I visited him in Kenya. Well, actually, I visited him in Kenya. And then as soon as I had met his family, we got engaged. But I had already like lined up. I had an internship in France for the fall, which I wasn't gonna like not do.
Right.
So like it took a little while of like visiting
Yeah. Yeah.
before
You are getting married. Yeah.
we got married. But I mean, we got engaged very quickly, and actually, we would have got married. Like we were both ready to get married, but like there were
Yeah.
logistical things around like his family coming to Sweden because we wanted to get married in Sweden, and we wanted it to be, there was like
Yeah.
some logistics that had to be like aligned.
Figure it out. Yeah.
But we had that like really quite amazing first year where like he was visiting Sweden. I visited him in Kenya. I visited him in the US. I visited him in France. And it was just kind of like very romantic because it was,
Yeah.
we had all these like amazing experiences.
Yeah. That sounds like a
No,
dream.
no, it was. It really was. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, we got married in Stockholm. It was beautiful. We had an outdoor wedding. And a lot of friends and family came from the US, which was beautiful. And we lived in Kenya, which was amazing.
Quite the experience. Like newly married, you're young, you're
Yeah.
living in Kenya. That's a
No, I
lot.
know. Like it just like life changed very subtly,
Very,
but like for the better. And
yeah.
there were such big changes. And I can imagine it would have been hard if I didn't feel so sure that this was
Right.
like right.
Right.
And like for both of us, like we were like, we're gonna figure all these things out, but we know that this is right.
Yeah.
So I think if I'd had doubts, it probably would have been
It would
hard.
have
But
been
like
much harder. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't have any doubts.
It's like such a gift when you're so sure. I think so much of our of life, when life's a struggle, I find like in my life when life's a really big struggle, it's because like I don't feel like I have a clear path, or I'm unsure of like what the next step is, or I don't know, and that's where a lot of that like angst and that like struggle comes from. Because
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
in a challenge but you're like, you're in it and you're sure and you're with your favorite person and you know what I'm saying, like then you can handle it. But then when something like upends your life and you're unsure, that's when it becomes like such a challenge.
For sure. For sure. And I've always felt this way. And you and I have talked about this so many times when we're chatting. There are going to be challenges in life, but if you have like a really strong foundation in your marriage and
Yeah.
you're like your partners and you could face things together,
Yeah.
that makes all the difference. Like you don't need to stand in this by yourself.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how it was living in Kenya. I want to know like how that was for you. And also, you said your husband was doing research. Can you share like what he was doing there? I find it so
Yes.
fascinating.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So he was and is still doing research around HIV/AIDS and other sexually transmitted infections and reproductive health.
I'm already fascinated. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow,
So
incredible.
women who are pregnant or want to get pregnant, and then also in an environment when there is a lot of HIV/AIDS.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he started working in Kenya he always tells me this and I forget, I think it was 1993. So this was before, there were antiretroviral medications, which is like a way
Wow.
of suppressing the viral load. I mean, today you could live a pretty good life
With
if you have
HIV
HIV
AIDS.
AIDS.
Yeah.
At the time, it was a death
It was,
sentence.
yeah. Yeah.
And in parts of Kenya at the time, there were 25 to 30% of the population were infected. It was huge.
Wow.
It was Yes. And so he was, working with the University of Nairobi and the Kenya Medical Research Institute and his home institution. At the time, it was at University of Washington in Seattle, and then we moved to San Francisco to UCSF, and working on care and treatment research on how to care for people who were infected. And I remember, so I moved there in 2001, and still at the time, there were treatment in the US, but it was
Mm-hmm.
so cost prohibitive that it wasn't an option in developing countries.
Wow.
And I remember like going to the clinic with him and talking to doctors and how, I mean, imagine the challenge of your meeting with a pregnant woman. So transmission could happen either with mother to child, it could happen either at birth and also through breast milk.
Wow. It's so fascinating.
So the challenge was when you live in a setting and you live in a slum where there's no access to clean water, do you
Right.
feed your child formula and the water might be contaminated, or do you nurse?
I can't imagine like having those two choices.
And those were the choices. It
Like
was an
it's
impossible
so
choice.
foreign to any of us who live
Yes.
in developing countries. But wow. So what did people do?
At the time, it was an impossible choice. Still, I think for most people, it was safer to breastfeed because not
Mhm.
everyone, like infection didn't always
Always
transmit.
transmit. Yeah.
But, unclean water is really dangerous for a baby. And then,
Yeah.
then as more medicine became less cost prohibitive, then now you you could safely breastfeed if you're HIV positive because there's a way of suppressing the viral load and you could do it safely. And so, but at the time, he's seen this really big change and shift. And a lot of research was around behavioral changes. There's a lot of stigma
Yeah.
around people living with HIV/AIDS, especially early
Yeah.
on when you didn't know how it was transmitted. Could you shake
Yeah.
hands? Could you not?
Right.
And interestingly enough, also is that it is circumcision is a very good way of prevention because men who are circumcised are much less likely to transmit or to
Oh my
acquire and
gosh.
transmit it. So he was there was the big trial in a part of Kenya where so like depending on which tribe you belong to, like some tribes circumcise young, like it was accustomed to circumcise boys going into adulthood. That was like their
Hmm.
practice.
Yeah.
And then some tribes did not have that practice. So then they've he was part of a trial to see like, is it culturally appropriate? Like, how do you get those that don't do it to do this as a
To
medical
do it.
procedure?
Wow.
And it actually has become very well, like now it's
Accepted.
kind of accepted. Now, like that is the practice that they will circumcise their infants now. So yeah, and then a lot of it too around care and treatment and how do you get poor people to clinics
Yeah.
when transportation is an issue. Another actually a long study he's had for many, many years is that it's very hard to take these medicines when you're hungry because it's like so hard on
Wow.
your body.
All the different things that we never think of
Yes.
has huge ramifications.
Mhm.
Yes.
So like you need to have the like 50 cents for transportation to get to the clinic. How could you make it so that you don't have to come to the clinic so often? Or could you maybe call in? Or could we have they mobilized a lot of community health workers so that you didn't have to come into the clinic, but they would come and find you. And like there were a lot of like very strategic things. And they did like telehealth of just trying to make it more accessible. And then he has an ongoing study looking at the intersection of agriculture and health, because again, like it's very hard to take medicines if you're hungry. So, how could you help people to improve their agricultural practices? so that they're able to stay on their medical regimes. And also around kind of maternal health, if you're pregnant, your child is going to be much bigger
Healthier.
and healthier if
You
you're
have
well
food.
fed while eating.
Yeah.
So like anyhow, so he does a lot of very interesting things.
And so amazing how like it's all interconnected. You think you're there for HIV AIDS and with how it's transmitted, and specifically in his field, which is obstetrics and all of that. But then it directly leads you to food insecurity and poverty and accessibility. And it's like you can't really have one without the next.
Yes, no,
It's
for
almost like
sure.
this unraveling of the need. It's like almost like the hierarchy of needs. Like what, and then how do you figure out what comes first and what comes next?
Yes, no, for sure.
Okay, so you work in Africa now in connection to foreign aid.
Hmm.
Did that start because you were living in Africa with your husband? Is that how that started? What's your degree in, and how did you get from point A to point B? Tell us about what you're doing because I think it's very relevant.
Okay, yes, no, for sure. Okay, so I'm a lawyer, and in Europe, law is an undergraduate degree. So unlike
Interesting.
here, yeah, well, it was really just in the US that it's a graduate degree. So that's what I was studying law at university
In Sweden?
in Sweden. And then I kind of majored, if you want, in international law because I knew that like that's what I wanted to do, but it's also a very hard field to get into.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like an advantage for me that I was living in Kenya and was on the ground and I could like get in and do the work
Yeah.
without
How incredible.
like it's very hard to do from afar to try to get
Right.
those endpoints. So initially I was, which was fascinating. So I was working at the Swedish embassy with their foreign aid portfolio, doing things around human rights, around elections, civic education. So I got to work with all these different local NGOs that were working on these topics. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating. So that's what I did when I was in Kenya. And at that time, we lived in Kenya for a year and a half. And I loved it. I was ready to like sign me up. Like I was ready to stay
Mm.
because it's like Nairobi is, it's not a fun city to visit, but it's a really fun city to live in because there's so much going on. There's also a Jewish community that's been there for over 100 years.
Oh, wow.
And it is very, like, the weather is amazing. It's like high up, so it's not too hot. There's no mosquitoes. It's just
Oh,
like,
wow.
it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Perfect.
And you're hours away from anything and everything. You go on safari, a couple of hours away. You're on the coast, a couple of hours away. You go to the mountains, you go to the rainforest. Like, there's so much to see and do. And the other thing is that, like, people ask me, I feel like if you want to go to Africa, either you go to South Africa. If you haven't been, like if
Yeah.
you want to go, you haven't been.
Yeah. Yeah.
South Africa, and I know you've been, it's
Yes. It was
great.
incredible.
And it's great for tourism. They're very set up for tourism. And it's a
Yeah.
great like entry point.
Yes. First step.
Can First step, exactly. It's like easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
You don't need to deal with the bad roads and
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
We're dying to go to Kenya as a family.
It's
Like,
amazing. It's amazing.
okay, we did entry level. Now we want to do
You ready
the
for the
next
next step
level,
up? Yes.
but it is much harder and much more logistical to make
There
happen.
is more, yeah, but I would say is that like Kenya is their hospitality industry is next level. Like they understand tourism. It's the
Really?
most friendly. They love having kids. They will go out of their way of accommodating whatever your kids need. They make special food for them. They bring the playpen. They have the babysitter ready for you whenever they need it. Like,
Oh my gosh.
and the climate is amazing. And it's like, anyhow, so there was all of that that made it like such a fun place to live. For my husband, he had now lived there for almost 10 years and he was ready. And what happened was that a lot of people come in like 2-year cycles, a
Yeah.
lot of expats. And so he had circled through like people come, you make
And go.
friends, and then
Yeah.
go. And he was like tired of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like career wise for him, he was like a little bit, again, it's not like now when you could just hop on a Zoom call, but like it was a little bit like out
Yeah.
of sight, out of
Yeah.
mind. Anyhow, so he wanted to move back to the US. So we moved to Seattle, which is because he was at University of Washington. So then we were there for a year, and I did a master degree in also in international law and international development, which was great. And then during that year in Seattle, we were like, in many ways, I loved Seattle. Amazing city. Okay, didn't love the weather, but like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
And also there's like a lot of similarities with Scandinavia. But we realized very quickly that either we were visiting my family or we were visiting his family in California. And it felt like that was our vacation time, was visiting family. So we decided to move to San Francisco, which we did. So he then joined UCSF. And then I wanted to pursue my PhD. So I wanted to do a PhD. So I got into Stanford and I went to Stanford.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And also, what worked out really well was that during my PhD studies is also when I was pregnant and I had children. And it was actually, like you and I talked a little bit about this before, it was actually a perfect time because I could like do a year of coursework while I was pregnant. Then I took a year off. Then I jumped back in. And then I got pregnant and I stepped off a little bit. And then I jumped back in. And I was able to kind of arrange my schedule so that I didn't need to go full time, but I could still, like, I was a mother and I also was like active and continue with my studies and active in my field. So during that time, during my PhD studies and when our kids were little, we moved back to Kenya. And this time we moved so I was doing
So
field
now
work.
you're going back with kids.
And now we're going back with kids, yes,
Oh,
which was
wow.
fantastic. It was
You loved it?
fantastic. It was the best thing. Well, so this time we weren't in Nairobi anymore. We were in Kisumu, which is a town, the third largest town on Lake Victoria, so eastern part of the country.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was fantastic. So I got to do my field work. We also had 2 full-time staff members at home.
Yeah. That's the real big perk about living in these kinds of
It
countries.
was amazing. So
You had help.
we had help. We had help. We had a
Yeah.
full-time nanny, and then we had a full-time housekeeper. Basically, she was cooking, she was cleaning, she was shopping. So like either I was working or I was with my kids.
Right. You didn't have to do any of the domestic stuff.
There was no logistics.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Again, it was like a small place and a small community with, there were some other expat families, not many. There were actually 2 other Jewish families there. So we had our little chavurah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And we moved back to San Francisco, but we maintained that. And for quite a number of years, we would go. So my husband has like always continued going back and forth to Kenya
Right.
and travels a number of times. And we would try to, like, in the summers, go for maybe like 2 to 4 weeks. And we also had they had a fantastic little small international school that our daughter was at when she was little. And we were able to like pop them back into that little school for those weeks when we were there. So they got kind of that little like immersion
Yeah.
experience. We got
Yeah.
to do what we needed to do. So yeah, so we've like maintained that connection, which
Yeah.
has been great.
So this is your professional life. So your home life, you're raising your kids in San Francisco. You have 2 children, but you have a little bit of a unique experience that I think would be interesting to hear about and just to tell us like what was home life like and adapting and pivoting in our personal lives. That's a big theme.
Yes, yes, for sure. We were a family of 4 and we are a family of 5. So
Mhm.
my brother-in-law, so my husband has had 1 brother and he died from cancer. So what was happening was that my sister-in-law, so his wife, died. Now it is, I would say like 17 years ago, maybe,
Oh,
from
wow.
cancer. So she died from cancer. And then my brother-in-law got sick like 10 years later. He got sick, or 8 years later or something like that. And at my daughter's bat mitzvah, my brother-in-law and his daughter came to the bat mitzvah. And at that point, he was so sick that like he didn't leave. So he moved in with us
Oh, wow.
and lived for the last 3-4 months of his life in our home.
That's huge.
So then he passed away very tragically. And then his daughter, who was 16, just turned 17, became part of our family through guardianship.
So she's your
Um,
niece.
which is my niece. Exactly.
Yeah.
My niece. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my niece.
Talk about like having to just adapt and step up, and can never imagine something like that.
No, and of course, and like also there was like a lot going on for
Mhm.
everyone. She had lost both her parents. She
A
had
lot
just
of
lost her,
grief.
yeah, a lot of grief. She had just lost her father.
Your husband lost his only brother.
Exactly. My in-laws had lost their son.
Mhm.
And there was just like so much grief. There was so
Mhm.
much grief.
Mhm.
And also there was like a lot of things we had to figure out. So one thing I know we have in common is that my niece is 4 years older than my daughter. So there were a lot of like practical things that we had to very quickly figure out and learn about that we did not have any experience in. Like I didn't know anything about high school, but she needed to get into like a high school.
Yeah.
And like there was like so many practical things.
Yeah, having a child join your family out of age order where like they're jumping the oldest child, and all of a sudden you're trying to raise a child that's is not in order for you. I can relate because when we had adopted Shoshana, she was 12 and Chaya was 7. So all of a sudden I have a 12-year-old, but I haven't
You
I
skipped
haven't
like 8, 9,
grown
10,
with
11.
right. Like I haven't
Yeah.
grown with the job. Like it's just, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what to do with a 12-year-old. Like I'm not, it hasn't been part of my experience, or when you grow with your child, but all of a sudden you're jumping. So I really relate to that idea of just all of a sudden you are out of your wheelhouse. Like you're all of a sudden you're like, I don't have the skills for this. Like, and you just have to wing it and figure it out. And then the dynamics of the family changes so much because you have your oldest, and who's not the oldest anymore, but is still your
Mhm.
first, and
Yes.
there's a lot of
There was a lot of shifting.
challenging,
Yes.
shifting, accommodating, and a lot of struggle in figuring it all out.
Yes, it was a lot for sure. And also like it was a lot for her. Like it was a lot, like a
A
lot of
hundred percent.
she didn't like no one chose this, but we
Yeah.
were like, this is what we had to work with. And I think considering everything, like I feel like everyone handled it beautifully. We were all like pulling in one direction.
Mhm. Rallying around each other.
Yes, exactly. And then like in this like heavy grief that was just like sitting like a cloud
Mhm.
over our heads and over our house.
Wow. Cannot even imagine.
Yeah, so like I feel like for me again, like just for me, the first like 4 to 6 months was really like a fog of trying to like just put one foot in front of the other and try to deal with like a lot of very practical logistics.
Yeah. A lot of putting out fires and like just dealing with what was coming at you in real time.
Yeah, and it was both like the logistics and because it was like guardianship, we had to go through court and there were home visits and studies and things like that, which was like total fine, great, but like
Mhm.
that was a new reality for
Yeah.
us.
Takes a lot of time too.
Yeah, and then there were like health insurance and school and like a lot of like very practical stuff that we had to figure out. And then it was again, all the grief and
The
then all the
emotional part of it.
new family dynamics and getting to know each other in a different way of like
Mhm.
the aunt and uncle who see you every now and then to like, we're here every single day in and out. And this is like what we're doing. And yeah, I think we made it through beautifully. And we have
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful family that I am so grateful for.
Yeah.
And also, there's this like, you could sit in this both and of like, I'm so thankful and grateful that we have, that our family looks the way it does. And also, like, I wish it didn't have to. I
Yeah.
wish my brother in law was still alive,
Yeah.
because if he was, this is not where we would be.
Yeah.
So, like, I often think about this, like, you could hold both at the same time. And that's like, I feel like I'm always sitting in that tension of like, it's both and it's like
Yeah.
beautiful. And it's like, also, we're here
Yeah.
because of a really sad reason.
It really is. Yeah. And it's interesting because like I started the conversation like saying like, oh, you have two children, which is true, but it's also not that simple. And I think oftentimes as women, we get together and oftentimes one of the most common questions is, well, how many children do you have? And it seems like
Yes.
such a simple question, but for so many people, it can be loaded for so many different reasons. There's people who are struggling with infertility, or there's people who have lost children, and there's
Hmm.
people who have
Untraditional families, or,
untraditional
yeah.
families or brought children into their home or and all that type of stuff. So sometimes like these simple questions can be really stressful or it cause a lot of anxiety for people to answer. And I'm wondering like, okay, so when someone asks you like how many children do you have? What do you say?
It's such a good question. It's like such a good question, and like such an important topic. And I think for most people, it's again, like you said, it's like such a natural question that you don't even
Yeah.
think about.
And it's not I don't want to say it's not a bad question to ask. It's not
No,
like you shouldn't ask it, but sometimes the other end of it is, wow, this is sometimes not a simple question to answer.
exactly, exactly. So having that awareness is so important. When people ask me, how many children do you have? I answer, we are a family of five.
Mhm.
That's how I answer it.
Yeah, I
We're a
love it.
family of five. And once I like figured that out, it was like took off this like kind of
Stress.
stress for
Yeah.
me of like, how am I going to like, what am I going to say? And how am I going to explain this? And then, okay, so then sometimes, so as often I just leave it at that. We're a family of
Mhm.
five.
Mhm.
Sometimes, depending on like who it
The
is and what the
context.
conversation
Yeah.
is, I might say, my youngest is this age, my middle is this age, or my oldest is this age, or my oldest live in this city, my youngest live in that city. Like,
Mm.
I
Mhm.
might say something like that.
Mhm.
For some, like if you get a little bit step closer, I might
Yeah.
say my son this, my daughter this, and my niece who is a part of our family that.
Yeah.
And then like that's how I say it.
But what I find that's like so important, and for anyone who this applies to, like, I think if you take some time to figure out, okay, I'm going to get asked this question. So how do I want to respond? Because I'm in the infertility world and in the adoption world, and I come across this a lot. I hear a lot of people really struggle with the panic or the uncertainty of how to answer that question. And then someone can ask them that question, and then all of a sudden they're thrown off. They don't know what to say. They might say things that they wish they didn't say, or they might come across in a way that they wish they didn't, because every time this question comes up, it takes them by surprise, and it's shocking, and there's no way to navigate it. And one of the things that I found to be so helpful for me, and if anybody asks my advice, this is what I say, is like, think about the questions that are commonly asked and aren't really offensive questions. They might feel offensive to you, but they're really normal questions. So it doesn't really help for you to like be triggered around them or get upset when people ask you them, because it's going to happen.
For sure. And it wasn't day one that I had figured
And it
out.
takes
Like,
time.
and I had that period of like, well,
Ah!
let me explain. And then I'm like, I don't want to explain. Like, this
Yeah.
person doesn't need to know. And then I would
Yeah.
be like, this kind of like,
It takes some trial and error. So tell us about, you are involved in foster care, in particular in the CASA program. And when did that start?
I know. So, like, as if there
Because like
wasn't
you have
enough,
nothing else going on in your
I know,
life.
if
So
there wasn't enough going on in, let's say, March 2020 or April
yeah.
2020. So, yeah, so I start. So, okay, so CASA means court appointed special advocate. And it's a national program, and there's chapters in all the different states. And it's basically you are a volunteer advocate and matched with one child or youth that is in foster care. So you go through this training and then you get sworn in by the family court. So you're an officer of the court and you have certain responsibilities vis-a-vis the court. But basically, you're like, well, I mean, you are an advocate, but you're really that stable, reliable, trustworthy adult who is going to stick with this youth through thick and thin. It's not that you're not gonna become best friends.
And they're not living with you. It's not foster care.
No, exactly. It's not foster care. It's not foster care. So I am kind of the spider in the web. I'm connecting with the social workers and the placement and all the various therapists and service providers and the school and healthcare. And, there's a lot of people around any child, but a child in foster care has a lot of different providers. So I'm connecting with them, making sure that things are happening, needs are being met, and then also developing a relationship with the young
The child.
person.
Yeah.
And the official role is really to find out and hear what their needs are and then making sure that they're being met. It's not that
Yeah.
I'm the tutor, I'm not tutoring, but if we need a
Right.
tutor, okay,
Right.
let me find out how we're going to get a tutor and I get you a tutor and okay, that need is being met.
Again, you are a facilitator. If you notice, all your jobs have this common thread
Oh,
that
that's so
you
true.
facilitate relationships and get things done and connect. You're the connector.
Yeah.
That's
So
so
there's
cool.
yeah. No, I've never thought about that. But that's so cool. So there's that. But then also what happens is that again, you are that stable, reliable adult that there's a lot of people, a lot of professionals in and out of youth and care's life. And there's often their moving placement, social workers circle in and out. There's just it's a very intense and high trauma environment, and a lot of people burn out. So there's constant turnover of people. So the idea with your CASA is that you're the one who's kind of staying the course and staying with your kid, and you're the institutional memory, and also you are that trusted adult that is the special someone for this youth. And so for example, I have a youth who I've had multiple youth actually who before I became their CASA, they did not have a person they could put on the emergency contact form.
Can you imagine?
So then you had to put the CPS hotline. And imagine you don't feel like you have someone who's, is going to pick up the phone and
if you're in trouble,
be in your corner, even if it's from juvenile hall or from a lot of good, whatever it is, that this person is going to stand in your corner. So, I feel like I've had a lot of wins and I've had a lot of successes of getting to graduation, getting to the right school, getting to a good placement. I've had a lot of those things. And I've also had a lot of things that has gone
tragic
completely
stories.
Wayside. And it's been the spirals of, people hurting each other, people getting hurt, people there's just a lot. And things are anyhow,
Volatile.
completely completely crisis. I then have really felt like my role is to be able to stand in this chaos and be this safe and reliable person. Sometimes I could send out a raft. Sometimes I could anchor. They could come and rest a little bit and know that they're okay, there's chaos going on, but this person really has my back.
Is my safe space. Yeah.
And it's always going to be in my corner. However, I screw up or whatever I do, they're always going to try to find.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little small example. So I had a kid who it was major crisis. One of the smaller little things in this whole crisis situation was a suspension from school. Again, it's not great, but in the big scheme of things, it was such a little blip on the radar. And the school, the school called me, we're not happy about the suspension. And I could say like, well, it's true. It's not great, but like, it really demonstrates the commitment to education. And like, this student wants to be in school. It
Mm,
didn't work out so well today, but like, let's just like remember that this student is really trying to be in
yeah.
school.
And someone that can stand there with them and they
In
have some,
the
yeah, and
Exactly.
someone in their corner. And I
Yes.
think it's a really hard job. It's in a system that is so volatile and there's so many, a lot of people trying to do good things, but there's a lot of flaws and there's a lot of trauma, like you said.
So much trauma.
Yeah, it's like you can't save every single one of these kids and you can't fix all their problems. But I think what you do is just you're the anchor, you're there if they are even receptive to it. Sometimes they're not even receptive, and they're not able to use the resources that they have. But I think it would be hard to like be in that position and not try to save everyone and everything. And I think it comes to a certain point of time where you have to realize like you can't do that. But here's what you could do, and here's what my job is, and here's how I can show up for these kids.
Exactly. And it is a hard realization. And I would say, even like in training, they're like hammering in that you're not there. You're not the savior. Like, you're not there to
Yeah.
save them.
Yeah.
But still, you want
But you
to.
but you
Like,
want to,
you
because how
want
could you
to.
not want to?
And then it takes like a lot of practice and experience of like, no, that is actually not my role. And it takes a lot of bitachon. Like,
Yeah.
you really
A lot
have
of
to
faith.
dig deep.
Yeah. To me, having a really good book and making time to read is actually a really big part of how I fill my cup.
Yes.
And I have like certain times, like Friday night after the meal or Shabbos morning, before I come out and I am available to the world. I sit in bed and I read, because those are like the two times where I don't have to rush out in the morning or there's nothing else going on because I can't be on my phone. I can't be on electronics. So those are really special times for me that I dedicate to reading. And this is a huge part of our relationship, is our love of books and how we connect over books. So why don't you share a little bit about our book buddy system? And we're really sharing because I think this is something that is really accessible if you love to read and you want to discuss and you're passionate about the books that you read. Sometimes book clubs are just not that accessible, or it's not the format that you're looking for, or it's a lot of people, or you don't like the books that are being chosen. You have more autonomy with or two other people. So I just feel like this is such a great little addition to life that has brought me so much joy. And I always like to
Yes.
share the
Same,
things
same.
that bring me joy. So basically, Elin is the like in charge. So I want her to explain how, because I'm so in, but the thing that makes it so that works for me is that I'm not the logistical part of it. So Elin is making sure that
We're staying on
we're
target.
staying on target. She's most of the time picking the books. So tell us
All
how this
right.
works.
How does this work? Okay. So it's just the two of us. It's not a group. It's not a book club. So
Yeah, it's
it's
just
just
buddy,
it's just a buddy. Exactly.
two
So that's
people.
it's yeah, so it's two people. And then I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to do it, but the way we do it is that we pick a book. And then once we have a book, we say, okay, we're going to read to page 120. And then
Mhm.
you read it at your own leisure. So we both read a lot over Shabbos. So like,
Yeah,
that's kind of how we structure it. And then after Shabbos, we voice note each other about the book and all the feelings we have about the book. So we've had lots of big feelings.
yeah,
Occasionally we talk on the phone, but just because the structure of our life and when we're available varies. So voice note works really well for us.
yeah,
And what's really fun is that often I start out with like, this is what I think. And then I kind of get us started. And then you respond to that. And then I respond to that. And then so we go back and forth. And sometimes it's like all week we're sending each other
mhm,
messages. Also, what happens, and which is so fun, is that then we're like, this makes me think about this thing in my life, or my experience about this was this, or this makes me so angry because of this and this and this. So
yeah.
I mean, part of how we've got to know each other is really through reading books because we're sharing and learning about each other's lives too.
100%. I feel like it is such a gateway. I'm pulling up the book list. It's such a gateway to really getting to know somebody like newer in your life. And it's a gradual process. So through every single book that we've read, first of all, we seem to pick books that are very on theme for us, and we can
Yes.
relate to the content and the themes of the book, bring up a lot of stuff in our own life. And it's just like such a wonderful way to get to know someone and to share. And it's so organic. And I love that it's another reason why it works for me so well is that it's very hard for me to schedule like phone calls
Mhm.
and have a specific amount of time that is dedicated, which we do sometimes, but this ability to like voice note, and then maybe it's an hour or two later that I'm responding, or maybe even a day later, right? It's
Mhm.
just this fluid, organic conversation that really flows. And I have to say that it's been one of the most fun things that was an addition to this year that's new. And it's just the best.
It is the best. I agree. It is the best. And I think also what's so interesting, I think we both have found that I'm reading it at a different level. Like I'm reading
Hmm.
very differently. I'm much more
Yes.
like sinking into the book. I'm making little dog ears. I'm like, I need to see what Javi has
This
to
is
say
what we
about
have to talk
this.
about.
I know. So like I'm
Yeah.
reading it with such more like it, it's much more depth to the reading, which is also so
Yeah.
interesting.
It's true. Like you read a book that you know that you're going to discuss is such a different experience. And I think also is an art of picking a book that's discussable. Like not
True.
every book, like we read one book on the 11 books that we read together that was just like not a book buddy book. It wasn't a terrible book. It just like there wasn't anything to talk about. There was no meat and potatoes in there.
No.
So when you're picking a book for a book buddy, you do want to have a more intense book, a more layered book, something that's going to bring up stuff for you, or else it's kind of not
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So we thought it would be really fun to go through the list of books that we have read together, give you a little sneak peek into the book, and briefly some of our thoughts on the book. And there's so many, like there's a lot of book podcasts, there's a lot of suggestions out there. But also, if you're listening to this podcast, it's just so fun to have a recommendation, somebody that has read the book, that maybe you trust their book taste, and it's like practical. Like you can come away with a book list.
Yes.
And for me, like I'm always looking at what people are reading. I have a running list of the things that I want to add to my book list and that I want to read. And so this is something that I'm always looking out for. So I thought it would be fun to be on the other side and be able to share.
For sure.
So what's the first book that we read together? The Names.
Yes. By
Okay.
what's her name? Florence
Florence Knapp.
Knapp. Yeah. Yeah, that was our first book. And I thought it was such a great start because it's such a unique book. So
Mhm.
the premise is there's a mother who has her second child. She lives in an abusive relationship and she is considering what to name this child. She has
Yeah.
three different options. And then for the rest of the book, we get to follow this family if they
The
there's three different
trajectory.
stories. Exactly. The
Yeah.
trajectory if the child was named A, if it was named B, or if it was named C. And then we kind of dip into this family every seventh year for 20 some years. And these
Yes.
stories goes in like pretty diverging directions.
Directions. Totally. I love this book. And what I remember feeling and thinking about this book was just how significant intention and the energy around things are. So you think, okay, what's the big deal about a name? Like, is it really going to change someone's trajectory? And it may or may not play out that way. But in this story, like the way that she described, like the reason why these stories turned out so differently is so connected to what she named her child and why.
Yes.
And that had such an impact on the future of this family. And it really got me thinking of how important and how significant the energy around something is, and the intention that we have when we do something, and how powerful it is. That really struck me,
Yes.
and that stuck with me from this book.
Yes. No, for sure. And I would say I think it was interesting just in the very first like chapter of like once we have the three different names, when she chose one of the names, she kind of deflected and just resigned herself to her
Yeah.
faith. She wasn't
Yes.
able to connect with her child, and like, that was the path she was on. And I would also say, like, part of what really worked in this book wasn't like she picked one name and life was great. No, there were
Yeah.
like struggles in all the stories. So it wasn't like
Yes.
one happy ending if you pick this name. And I thought that was really like so rich
Yeah. It was a really great book. I would highly recommend.
and so much to discuss. So,
And very discussable, which is
yes,
what makes it a really good book buddy book. Okay,
yes.
so next we did The Correspondent by Virginia Evans.
Oh, so good.
And
So good.
so good. This has definitely like been on people's book lists. I've seen it around and it was so good.
Yes. So this is an epistolary novel. So we follow Sybil, who is 70 something, and she is writing letters and emails to everyone and no one.
Everyone. Everyone and everything. And the book is only letters that you're reading.
And it's only her letters. So you don't read the responses, but
Right.
you get what they are from the following letter when she's writing and complaining about the next thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Such a unique format, really, truly.
and then also, she was like such a full character. She was amazing and wonderful and such a flawed person. Like she had
Yeah.
the range of things. And that was just like, that was so interesting.
Yeah. She was really human. You really got to see so many sides of her. And I'd say for me, I really liked the book and I would have recommended it regardless. I think to me, what solidified this book as an incredible book is the way that it ended. The
Yes.
ending was like what cemented this book as above and beyond. The meat of the book was really good and I was so into it and it was so interesting, but it might have been like a 4.5 star. But the ending and the way that it ended was so touching and so emotional and so beautiful that it like propelled it to another level. That was kind of how I felt. And what was really fun about this book is because this book was letters, like it triggered your memories of like the way that you communicated with your husband in the beginning of your
Oh, that's
relationship
right.
with
Yay. That's
all the
true.
letters that you wrote back and
Yes.
forth. And so you got to tell me that experience and your story around that because it was very like obviously totally different, but also similar in the sense that you were letter writing and that's an art that doesn't really exist anymore. We don't really sit down and write handwritten letters. I hope it's coming back. I feel like we're trying
Yeah.
to get back to that a little bit. I see like a lot of stationary companies like up and coming and we're trying to get back to that, but you actually did it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yes. I forgot about that. We talked about it then, but you're
We
right. I
talked
know.
about that. Yeah. And I got to
Yes.
remember like the letter, I used to write letters to my grandparents and they used to write me
Mm.
back. And I actually have like my mother in our photo albums, I have some of the letters in the
Oh,
album. And it just was like such a nostalgic thing to remember and to think about. And my grandparents aren't alive anymore. And just to remember like what a beautiful way to communicate letter writing is.
yes.
That was a really fun part of that
Yeah,
book.
that was such a good book, and I've recommended it widely. So, yes.
Yes. Yes. I think at the end we can say what was your favorite. It will be very hard,
So hard.
but this was definitely up there.
Yes.
Okay, the third book we read was The Bright Years. This one was
Incredible.
maybe my favorite. Wow. What
Do you
an
want to try
incredible
to?
book.
It's very hard to. Well,
It's
you try
hard.
to
It's hard
encapsulate
to
it.
yeah, encapsulate it. So basically, it's like this multi-generational family saga type book. And there's a lot of themes throughout this book. There's addiction and there's grief and there's like secrets and forgiveness, even an element of adoption in this book. And
Which we had in the previous book too, in the correspondent.
in the correspondent. So we happen to like talk about themes. Like we happen to read a lot of books that have this theme. running
And
through it,
sometimes we
right?
don't know about it, but
And
it's
not
just
even on
like,
purpose. It kind of just
mhm,
happens.
yes.
And so this book is it's so hard to put in words because and it's not even a big book. Like she packed so much into this book that it's such a beautiful story. Also, what really struck me is the humanness of these characters and the
Hmm.
humanness of the father who ends up being an alcoholic and how he's trying to run away and be a different person than his father was, but ends
Yes.
up being very similar because the lack of being able to face it and running away from it kind of brought him full circle right to the same to the same point, and just navigating the family relationships and what that looks like when you're in this addiction cycle. And it was just a really, really beautiful book. And she has a really way with words. And there's actually one part of the book that I highlighted that she explained something.
I remember that. Yes.
I messaged you right away
Yes.
about an experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been able to express this feeling in words. And she did it in one sentence. And it was so powerful. So this book has like a lot of it like has my heart. It felt like understood through
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, you were like seen and
And
heard. Yes.
yeah, so it's
Yes.
really holds a special place in my heart, this book.
Yes, for sure. And also I think like there were so many like, well, the father, he was like a flawed character, but also such a likable character,
Exactly.
which,
Exactly. And
he was just,
it wasn't black and white. Sometimes you want to put like addicts and alcoholics and people who struggle in this like in these black and white boxes. And this book did such a beautiful job of like, no, these people are human and they a lot of times like really good, likable people that
have a lot of unprocessed trauma. Like in this
yeah,
case, that was, yeah,
literally
yeah,
unprocessed trauma.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So yeah, we both love that book.
yeah.
I did love getting your messages as you were reading and highlighting. It was like,
I remember because we read this in the summer and Hanalea was home with me the whole summer because she refuses to go to camp. And I would take her to the hot springs and she would swim and I would bring a book. And I remember exactly where I was sitting, exactly what I was
yes.
doing, like
I
where
was
I
like, I saw
was.
the pool in the background and
Yeah,
like the book. Yes,
when I message you, I'm like, oh my gosh, this
I
changed
know.
my world.
And I would just say, like, in terms of book buddy, that's like the beauty of being a book buddy. It's like, unlike when you're reading a book for a book club, which also,
Yeah.
like, I'm part of a book club and I do like book clubs. I don't need to wait a month to talk about this, but I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
reading it now. And I'm like, are
In
you?
real
Like, have you
time.
seen this? Yes.
Exactly. That's the huge perk. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Okay, the next book. Do you remember what the next book? The Road to Tender Hearts
Oh, yes. The Road to
by
Tender
Annie Hartnett.
Hearts.
By the way, we're going to have all this information in the show notes. So don't think you have to like memorize it, whatever. Like you'll be able to have the resource for all the books that we read.
Okay, so this book, it was so like, I don't know if I'm going to say fun or like there's like
Fun, bizarre,
bizarre,
eccentric, unique.
all of the above. So
Yeah.
it's about an older man who's lived his life, had like a family, like couldn't keep his family together. And then his estranged brother dies. No, his estranged brother's children dies and
Hmm.
leave the grandchildren in his
His
care.
care.
So he
It's
becomes,
such a wacky book. Yeah.
yeah, so he leaves them in his care and he's just completely clueless. He's like kind, but like he never grew up. He's like a big child
He's like a big
himself.
kid. Yeah.
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 And then he embarks on this absolutely crazy road trip. Absolutely crazy, like makes no sense road trip.
Yeah.
And this book, there's like, we kept on saying this to each other. It's like the
Yeah.
author is like, how much more craziness could I stack on top of the craziness I'm already throwing you? And it just
Yeah. It
worked.
was like it's like these stories that she's telling are extremely traumatic. Like what happens to the characters in this book is extremely traumatic. But because of the way that she writes it and because of the humor that she injects into the story, you're not traumatized by reading it.
No,
There's
no.
a lot of books that are intense and traumatic and it like it affects you and it's really deep and heavy. This book, like if you take it at face value, like it's extremely traumatic, but because it's such an insane story and the characters are hilarious and hysterical and just unbelievable that you come away with like a really like it's a really interesting story, but you're not traumatized. It's like I would even say it's a kind of like a light and funny book, even though
I
the
mean,
themes of the book are heavy.
Yeah, I was laughing out loud at times because it was so absurd. Like things were
Yeah.
so absurd, but there was this like really heavy themes.
It was kind of brilliant because she navigates these really big, heavy themes, and these people are having to process like really big stuff and go from like very unhealthy people to healthier people, but in a hilarious way. So highly recommend. It's like a wild ride.
Yes.
And nothing like you've ever read. You know, it's so unique.
No. Yes.
So it's a really, really fun book. Okay. The next book is the exact opposite, which is The River is Waiting.
I know.
So this book, incredible, but like you have to be ready for it. It's really heavy and it's really beautiful and really heavy and it's not light.
No. So I actually think I told you for about 2 months, I want to read this book. I want to read this book. And this is when we can read it because I'm going to be like emotionally available for this book. Like I know I need to have like
don't take this book lightly. It's not a beach read. You know what I mean? Like
no.
So tell us like a little synopsis.
Okay, so it starts out with there's a couple that has 2-year-old twins. And the father in this couple, he lost his job. He got on some like painkillers. He's not really able to manage and has succumbed to some level of addiction. And very tragically, he backs over one of his children and kills one of his children.
This is right in the beginning. It's not giving the story away.
So
like this is how it starts.
Away. Yeah. So this is how it starts. So I'm not giving anything away. And then it's about the aftermath and again, I'm not giving really anything away, but like incarceration, what happens with this marriage? How do you deal with the death of your child when you're responsible? And the relationship between the spouses.
I have to say that this book had a huge impact on me. And one of the themes in the book was the incarceration and just the realities of what somebody who's incarcerated goes through, especially in like, it's not a black and white situation. So it was extremely enlightening. It was infuriating. It was tragic. There was a lot of beautiful moments to it, but it's an incredible book and I highly recommend it and I loved it, but it's not to be taken lightly. You know what I mean? Like you have to know that this book is going to impact you and it's heavy and be prepared. It's like disclaimer.
Yes, no, exactly. And I felt like he captured like incarcerated life really well. And it turns out that he's actually worked for many years as a volunteer, like prison educator. And also he had some personal experience of loved ones being incarcerated. Yeah. So incredible. And also I felt like, again, such a good buddy read because there was a lot.
You had to talk it through. Like if you had no one if you were holding this book and had no one to process it with, I wouldn't recommend that. Yeah. Like if you're reading this book, even if you don't have a book buddy, make sure that you can talk it through with someone because
it's intense. It's intense. So good.
But again, one of my favorite books that I've read, if you're up for that type of book. Okay, so the next one was My Friends by Frederick Backman, which fun fact, you read in Swedish.
Yes, and that was
because it's your language. He's a Swedish author.
Yes.
So the original book so that's so cool.
Yeah. So this book, it's about a group of friends and it's both like in present time, we're following one or so of these friends. Yeah. One story.
Yeah.
And then looking back at this group of friends when they were 13, I think, and they had this kind of magical summer together. And one of the friends was very artistic and painted an incredible painting. So the painting is almost like one of the characters.
A main character. Yeah, it's a main character of this book.
And then we follow the story of this painting, the story, what happened to these friends. And then it's also like a current story and the people in the current story interacting with that story.
I love this book. I love him as an author. I think he has such a unique way of writing. His writing to me feels like poetry sometimes, and has also like a lot of meaning can be packed into like a sentence. I love the story. Also, like not a light story. There's a lot of trauma happening in
For
this
sure.
in the story. Again, there's a theme of like children in foster care, children not having neglect, safe homes. It's not as intense as The River's Waiting. It's not the same type of intensity, but it is. I happen to think it was a beautiful story. I really loved it. I think I loved it more
Yeah.
than you.
I liked it.
You liked it, but
But what I
yeah,
think was
yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting. He is a really great author and such, has a very unique voice. I think he is neurodivergent, and just
He
the
has to
way,
be.
like, I think I've read about him, like, explaining that, but, like, the way
Yeah.
he writes, you kind of understand what's going on in his brain, but it's just, like, it's so creative, and it's, like, unlike anything else, and it's just, like, how do you even come up with these, like, ways of framing this sentence? Like, it's poetry.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about it is that you're like in people's heads and you're starting to understand like how maybe neurodivergent
Mhm.
brains are working, and it's really fascinating. I've heard, I know people who like love his books, and I know people who are not fan of his books. I've also heard that like maybe his books can go on for a little bit too long,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
could have been shorter. I didn't feel that way in this book, but that was just my personal, like, I really enjoy him as an author. So to me, if it's a little longer, it doesn't
Yeah.
bother me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Well, I
mean?
think it could have been edited down a little bit, but it was a total delight.
Yeah.
And again, like, great to discuss. We
Yeah.
had so much to
Yeah.
talk about in this book.
Really, actually, yeah, one of the books that brought up like so much discussion because there were so many
So many
themes
themes.
of dysfunction or
Yeah.
neglect or children and art and talent. And it was just chock full of
Yes.
things to discuss. So it's a great book buddy book. Okay, Buckeye was
Okay.
next.
Do you want to take a crack of?
Okay. So Buckeye's also a really interesting, like, I would say family
Mhm.
saga type story as well. It kind of spans, I don't know,
Yeah.
30, 40 years, maybe even more. And it's about this young man who's has a deformity where one of his legs is shorter than the other. So he can't be enlisted into World War II. And it kind of, you hear about his childhood a little bit and about his father who was in World War I. And then you follow his life. And then you follow, he has a chance encounter with a woman. I think her name is Margaret. And then you kind of hear about her life. Also orphan,
That's right.
also grew,
There was an
like
orphanage
it
there
just
too.
happens to
Yes.
be,
Oh, yes.
yeah. And basically you're following these two characters' lives and
And
then
their families, and
they
yeah.
intersect. Their families intersect and it kind of like becomes a very big part of the story. And I think we discussed this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the beginning was
Yes.
really slow. The middle part of the book was
Great.
excellent, and then the ending was
Right.
disappointing.
Because I think the first part was slow, but it was also like the first part spanned over like a year or two. And then, so the book was divided into three
Right.
parts. And then there was the middle. And then the last
Yes.
part
Which is
spanned
like
over
20
20, 30
years.
years. Like, phew, like what happened? So it felt
Yeah.
very uneven,
Yeah.
both in
It was
terms
too
of like
fast.
time and then
Yeah.
also the quality of that. Not the writing, but just like the pacing of the story. So the middle was great.
Yeah. The middle was great. I saw this book on a lot of lists. I think there was a lot of hype. I liked it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't one
No,
of my
same.
favorites. It wasn't a bad read. It was a good read, but I think it got more hype than
Yes.
it deserved.
Yes. But a good read.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
But it was a good read. And the middle part was extremely fascinating. And I think she should have stretched that out a little bit more, shortened the beginning part, which was like only a year and kind of dragged on. And then the end part also like just wrapped up so quickly. And there was just an unevenness to how it was
Totally.
paced, in our opinion. Okay, but the next book was, I think, The Life and Death of Giants.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We're up to that. All right.
Oh my God, I love
It
this
was
book
so
so
good. It was
much.
so good.
I love this book
Yes.
so much. So unique. Okay. But you take it away. Tell us what
So
a
this is
synopsis.
about an Amish family, and the daughter in the family has a child that is enormous at birth and then just grows and grows and grows and ends up being, I don't even know, like very tall, 8 feet something.
Like over 8 feet.
So it's a like the story is both about kind of the Amish culture and what it's like to live in a very insular and also very kind of faith and culturally rich environment. And then what it's like to
Yeah.
step away from that and engage with the outside world. And then this like intense family saga. Plus
Yeah.
this boy in this enormous body. So there was like so much
Yeah.
there.
Also, a lot to discuss of this book. It really was rich, and I think it brought so much perspective, even if you're not Amish. I think even as being like a religious Jew, there were so many things that I could relate to in the sense of like your responsibility, your faith, the things that you do just because it's what your faith
Mhm.
dictates, and where there's flexibility and where there's not, where it feels extreme, where it doesn't. Like there was so much
Yes.
rich
Yeah. We had so many
discussion.
conversations,
Yeah.
sidebar conversations from this book.
And it's just a beautiful book.
Yes.
10 out of
Highly,
10 for
highly
me.
recommend.
Loved it.
Highly.
Yeah. And also, again, so unique. I've never read a story like that before. And also the other thing that we talked about a lot, the characters were also super flawed, super human, and all the characters you loved and you were invested in.
Yes.
Like every single one of these characters were beautiful people,
No.
not perfect, made a
Mhm.
lot of mistakes, did a lot of questionable things, but they were beautiful people, and you loved and were rooting for every single one of the characters in this book, which I find is unique.
Yes, for sure. And I have to say, I think this was like I don't know if it was one of the, I felt like this was one of the books where we had so many like sidebar conversations because it like brought up so many things.
Yeah. Also felt there's a lot of things that felt personally relevant to
Exactly.
me in my life right now, and just like
Yes.
processing
All kinds of things. Yes.
what it feels like to hear a story from different perspective and how it relates to you and how you feel about it.
Yeah.
It was incredible. The next book is The Other Side of Now, which was the book that we were recommended, but it's not a book buddy book. There's nothing to discuss. It's like maybe a beach read if you want something that doesn't take.
I like keep on forgetting the
Yeah.
title of this book, but it's like a fine beach
Yeah.
read, but
Yeah.
no need to discuss
Exactly.
anything.
It's not a book buddy book. So you heard it here first. Don't use this for your book buddy. It's not a bad book, but it's not a good. It's not a nothing. It's a nothing book. Okay, but the next one is Some Bright Nowhere.
Yes, that was the one I see. That was the one I thought you were going to talk about because I had like suppressed the other one. Anyhow, this is such an interesting concept. This is the book we had the absolutely strongest feelings about.
And not positive.
This is a book. It's about a couple, an older couple that had been married for 30, 40 plus years. They have children together, grown children. And then the wife is dying from cancer. The husband is the caregiver. And could I share what the big kind of, okay.
Yeah. Just share. Spoiler, if you whatever. It's the main part of the story. So you're gonna find this out in the beginning anyway. So
she decides that she wants a spa death with her girlfriends and for her husband to kind of exit
kicks her husband out of the house, literally.
And he is not needed anymore. And he's been like, and
can you breathe? I cannot breathe from this book.
Also, let's just remember at this point, she has had her cancer diagnosis for 8 years. Her husband has been caring for her for this time.
Yeah.
And now she wants the spa death.
I can't. This book infuriated me to the biggest degree I've ever been infuriated by reading a book. I can't so it's really interesting because it's an excellent book buddy book because it's going to bring out a lot of emotions and a lot of things to discuss. But
We couldn't even decide.
Oh, how do you describe this book? Is it a good book? It's an insane premise. It's an insane thing. We were saying that we would like to hear maybe an interview with the author. Like,
Like,
what
why
was the
did you
point?
write this?
What was your point? What were you trying to say? Like, because it's just an insane thing. And it made me so upset. The woman is not likable at all.
I got
You
so
hate
many
her.
strong messages from you, which I enjoyed so much. That's why I'm laughing, because you were so
Even if
upset.
she's the one dying, but you hate her. Yeah, I was really passionate about this book. I was so angry about it. But I have to say, like, it did actually make me think a lot about the process of dying. And it made me realize that, and maybe this is a good like hot take discussion, but it made me realize that when somebody is dying, it's yes, you have to respect their wishes. Yes, it's important to follow some type of guidelines and hear their desires. But at the end of the day, the person who's dying is going to
Exactly.
be dead. And it's really about the people that you
Mhm.
leave behind. And the process of somebody dying needs to be so intentional and so catered actually to the people who are left behind, because they're the ones that are living with it. The person who's dying is dead. And whatever happens after that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is the people who are left behind and the baggage that they have to hold and the feelings that they have to live with. And that was a really, really something that I really have been thinking about, and is, I guess, a positive of the book because it makes you think. But what a I don't even know how to. I can't even categorize this book.
I'm just laughing. No, no, it was so.
But it's a
It
really
is a
short
short read.
read.
It's like it's two sittings. It was very quick, but there was so much,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I exactly. And this is like we kept on coming back to in our discussions.
What was the
Well, what
point
was
of
the
the
point? But
story?
also, I mean, we got to the point ourselves, I think, which was no,
Yeah,
we don't agree because it's really about the people you leave behind. So I felt like
yeah.
she had to like, I don't know, poke us to like,
But was that the point of her book, or was her point of the book like, was it like a woman empowerment book? Like, what
no,
was
no,
the
no, we have,
point of this
yeah,
book?
no, no, we
I
have to
still
actually
don't
listen to a
know.
podcast and find out. I think the part, I mean, there were so many parts about this
Yeah,
too that I was like upset with her friends who were going to like take care of her and like
yeah.
completely ignore the husband. And then also this like, and it didn't turn out this way, but they kept on having this like romantic idea about what it's like dying and that it's like going to the spa.
And then she finally realized that like that's not what death is like. It's not
It's
going to
not a
be
spa. No.
romantic and a spa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was crazy. It
Yes,
was
but very
crazy.
actually,
But a
yes,
great book, buddy book. If you want to have like passionate
for
conversations,
sure.
this
Yes.
is a good one. Okay, and the last one that we just finished was The Family of Spies. And this is, I think, the only book that we read that's not a fiction.
Exactly. This is the first nonfiction, which was also interesting to read. I think, well, I mean, we're leaning definitely more towards the fiction, but it was interesting to mix it up a little bit.
I prefer fiction, but every once in a while there's a good nonfiction that I'm down for.
So this story also very interesting. It's an American woman that in the mid 1990s gets a letter from a researcher who says, I think your aunt was a spy at Pearl Harbor for the Japanese. And she starts like untangle her family history, their roots in Nazi Germany, their
Mhm.
involvement in the Nazi regime
Party.
and party,
Yeah. Yeah.
and their part in like being in Hawaii and spying and eventually like they being a cog in the like whole machinery for the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I mean, it was a very interesting book. It also took her almost 30
30
years
years to
to
publish it,
like
to like unravel the story.
unravel the story and also sit on it. And part of the story too is her kind of sitting with this material. Like every now and then we get a little snippet of like, oh my goodness, like, do I need to
Yeah.
continue this? Like, do I want to
Right.
know more about this?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a good read. I think I would give it like, it was like a good 4-star, but
Mhm.
it was very interesting. And also, you learned a lot. It was a fascinating story. And I think it was a brave thing for her to do to publish this book. Although we did discuss that I think the reason why she was able to publish is that her father was not didn't have any
Right. He comes out
part in
ahead
this
in like
story.
this
He
story.
comes out
Exactly.
ahead. He was a young teenager. He really didn't know what his family was up to. So I think that allowed her to be able to actually publish the story because it's a little
Yeah.
bit more a little bit more removed.
But still, it felt like it took a lot of courage to do it.
It's a really crazy story, and
Yeah.
it was a good read, and it was well written. So
Yeah.
I think that so
That's
we're up
good.
to date. Should we tell
Yeah.
everybody what we're reading next?
Yes, we're starting starting now. What's the next book?
Yeah, we're going to start now. The next book that we picked was Days You Were Mine by Claire Leslie Hall. She's the one that wrote Broken Country,
Mhm.
which was all the rage. I actually haven't read that one yet, but we're going to read this one. Is it before or after? This was before, right?
She wrote this book before Broken Country. And actually then I think it was republished after Broken Country because Broken Country was so
Was so
popular.
big.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So I haven't read a book by her yet. A Broken Country is on my list. I just haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to read this one.
yeah,
And
no, I am too. And we
we already
already know,
have a bunch on the roster already, right?
right? So part of like my little Montana trip here is that we got to go to the bookstore together and
Yes,
pick
it
out
was
some
so fun.
books. So I think, yeah, that's it. And I mean, it's been interesting. Like we already mentioned, but like there are certain themes that keeps on coming up in
Yeah.
the books and that we like to
Yeah.
discuss. And some we choose on purpose, and
Some is a
other books
surprise.
it just pops up. Like
It
there's
pops
like a
up.
lot of family dysfunction, a lot of kind of adoption, chosen family type
Yeah.
stories,
Themes.
themes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also find that we are reading very current books. We're not really doing back catalog books, which I like. I like to read kind of like the current books that are out. So it seems like just naturally that's what we're gravitating towards. And I know also maybe in the show notes we can put some of I know you listen to some book podcast. I don't, but I know you
Hmm.
have some great book podcasts and book follows that you like to engage in, and maybe that would be kind of fun to share as well.
Yeah. No, we could do that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I
All
think that's a
right.
wrap.
Yay.
And that was so fun. And I hope you are inspired to number one, read because it's the best thing in the world. And number two, maybe inspired to get a book buddy. And what's so amazing is that Ellen took the risk of just
That's
asking
true.
me, even though we didn't know each other that well. And it was great. Like, so don't think it has to be somebody that you already know or already in your circles. Like, this is an opportunity to actually to forge a new relationship and get to know someone that is maybe on your periphery and that you don't really know that well. And just go for it. You never know what's going to happen. And it
Yes.
has just been such a amazing addition to my life. So maybe it will be for you too.
Yeah. Thank you. No, the same. And also, I feel like, you could do one book if it doesn't work out. Like you haven't committed to each other for long term. So like give it
Exactly.
a
It doesn't have
try.
to be forever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it
Exactly.
has, I mean, so recommend. Like I'm telling everyone about this.
Yeah.
It's like bringing so much joy to me. So
Yeah.
all
Awesome.
right.
Well,
Thanks,
thank
honey.
you. Okay, I have a lot of things to reflect on about this episode that I'm excited to just have a minute to talk about. Number one is this idea of making real friends on Instagram. I don't know if it's unique. I think many people do it, but I just have to say how grateful I am to have made the relationships that I have made through a social media app. And I think we talk a lot about how detrimental it is, how addictive it is, how much it's affecting our children, and how scary it is. And I am on board for those things. It is really difficult to navigate and to have balance around and to live healthy lives with so much coming at us. And I just want to take a minute to express my gratitude and the way that this app in particular, Instagram, has enhanced my life in such hugely real ways. So I live in Bozeman, Montana. I have an incredible, wonderful community and incredible, wonderful friends on the ground, but it's far from everything. And you live in your little corner. And I always think about the fact that if I didn't have this opportunity on social media, like how many people I wouldn't have the pleasure of knowing and becoming friends with. And Elin is one of those people. Like we met on Instagram and we connected over some of our similar home life situations and our love for books. And then as you heard on the episode, she was like, "Do you want to be my book buddy?" And I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but yes, please." And it morphed into this really beautiful relationship. And I can tell you that I have so many good, deep friendships that started on Instagram and translated into real life friendships. And I have to be grateful for that. And I have to recognize how much that has changed my life. And when people are struggling so much on the apps, I really just wish and hope that people can experience it the way that I do. And I'm not saying that I can be too addicted or I have to make boundaries. I'm human for sure. But I do have to say that Instagram is a happy place for me. And I always say, you get to decide what you consume. So if it's not working for you, make it work for you or don't. I mean, don't have Instagram, like whatever. There's a lot of positives for not being on social media as well. I definitely can see that. But I sometimes just like want people to have the experience that I have and how much I love it and how much it's done for me. So that's one of the things that I wanted to just reflect on. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about, kind of have a couple hot takes before we even get to our hot take section. I have a few before we even get there. So books. I love to read and I love books. What I've noticed is that books have made a comeback, which is the coolest thing. I think it's like kind of like the antidote to social media. Like if you're going to spend time online, at least spend equal or more time reading a book. So I think it's in the last 5-6 years, maybe since COVID, that books have become such a huge, like there's book talk and there's like all sorts of book accounts. And I think that's pretty new in the last 5-6 years. And it's really, really fun to see. There's never too much talk around books. But what I have to say is that I've been reading and I've been obsessed with books since I started reading in kindergarten at age 5. So this is not a new, like all of a sudden I'm into books and I'm like kind of jumping on the bandwagon. Like books for me, and if you've known me long enough, you know this, has been part of my life from the very beginning. I've always been obsessed with reading. I was always that kid that had a book wherever I went. I was always like trying to get away with reading at the dinner table. I was always staying up late at night reading a book. My mother could never like keep up with the books. And when I was growing up, the Jewish library thing didn't exist. And my mother was constantly having to buy books. And yeah, like books have been such a big part of my life for my whole life. So for some reason, I just feel the need to say like, this is not a trending thing. This is not something that I started to be passionate about a few years ago. Books have been such an integral, huge part of my life. So talking about books will always bring a smile to my face. If I want to have like a deep, intense conversation, oftentimes it's around a book and topics that books bring up. Nowadays, you can also listen to books. And I have some feelings around that. I think it's great to listen to books. Like I think you are receiving knowledge, it's entertainment, it's healthy, it's wholesome. but it's not the same as reading. I was talking to my therapist about this. Like getting information through your eyes is different than getting information through your ears. It's not that one is better than the other. It's just not the same. So I take issue with somebody saying, I read a book, but really they listened to it. You didn't read it. You had story time. Like it's not the same thing. I have not once listened to an audiobook, not because I feel like I'm an elitist. It's just I have such an attachment to reading the book, holding the physical book. And I also have so many things to listen to. Like, how do you listen to books and listen to podcasts? And there's so much. On the other hand, I have hundreds and hundreds of books that I want to read, and it's physically impossible to read them all. And so I have people trying to convince and tell me that, okay, well, if you want to get through all these books, you better start listening to some audio. But I don't really have a lot of audio time. So I don't know. All to say is that I think it's really cool that you can listen to books now. And it's definitely a really great thing to do. Like my kids actually listen to books all the time. We're pretty much screen free. We have started to introduce a tiny little bit now that they're getting older and we're experimenting on like what they can handle. But we're pretty screen free and we've been for many years. So what that did is that my kids are now book obsessed, which I love. So we buy a lot of books. My kids live in the library. They're always taking out and returning books. And they also listen to a lot of audiobooks. My son takes out, you remember CDs? Like CDs. The problem is that it's really hard to find CD players. His CD player just broke and now we're like scrambling to find a CD player. Like we can order one online, but we can't find a store that sells a CD player. But so they listen to books on tape all the time. And I love it because listening to a book on tape and like playing Lego and doing a puzzle at the same time, or just hanging out and listening is incredible, incredible. And it's so much better than watching a screen, but it's not the same as reading. So I really encourage them to read as well. And thank God we have Shabbos, which forces us to read and not just listen. So basically, again, back to what I was saying, I think being able to listen to books is an incredible thing. And it's not reading. It's not reading. That's what I want to say. It's not reading. You can't say that they're the same thing. And I really encourage people to read a physical book, not even on a Kindle. I hate Kindles. I hate e-readers. Like, just read the book. I feel so passionate about that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the episode you just listened to. I hope you enjoyed. I really want to do more episodes around books. And yeah, send thoughts. Always let me know like things that you love to hear about because I want to talk about things that you want to hear. Anyway, to the voice notes section we go. The hot take was bar mitzvah culture. Is it out of control? Agree or disagree? Okay, that was the hot take. So we are going to spend some time in bar mitzvah land. The reason why this hot take is super timely is because my son's bar mitzvah is in 3 weeks and it's a really big deal. But we're going to get to the voice notes and then I'll share some of my personal thoughts on bar mitzvah.
I feel like bar mitzvahs have become way more elaborate than they used to be. And I feel like the focus of the day and the importance of focusing on who a bar mitzvah boy is and what they're becoming has shifted to more about the production of the day and how fancy a party could be, as opposed to focusing on the really important, the specialness of the day and the specialness of the bar mitzvah boy. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, so there's a lot of sentiments around bar mitzvah culture, and I think all of them have a place. And I think what she's saying is really valid, that sometimes we lose sight of what the point of a bar mitzvah is. And I think it's a really good idea to constantly come back to center and make sure we're not, even if you throw a big party, and I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but don't forget about the point. Like, don't lose sight of what we're actually doing here. I think you could do both. I think you could throw a big party and have it be really meaningful. Sometimes I feel like people think it's one or the other. If you're throwing a really big, extravagant party, then you lost sight of what the bar mitzvah is really about. And if you really focus on what the bar mitzvah is really about, that means you're not throwing a big party. I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. Maybe we'll explore that a little bit later.
I was thinking about your question about bar mitzvahs. And it's interesting that you're asking because I think you have come to represent to many people a person who's really good at knowing their own mind and intuiting what is right for you and for your family. So definitely continue in that direction when it comes to your son's bar mitzvah. But it is a really good topic for people to weigh in on. As you can see, I'm interested in giving my opinion, which is that everybody has to do what's right for their own situation. And what other people do is irrelevant. So being on shluchos, having a community, is going to look like a different bar mitzvah than being in a large frum community where there's sort of a standard or an expectation. But I really don't like those expectations because even in a big frum community, everybody should do what's right for their child and their family and their situation. And if a person wants to make it really extravagant for whatever reason, because that's what's important to them, or that's what their family appreciates, or that's what their child wants and will always remember, then why shouldn't they do that if they're able to? I think that other people feeling pressured because someone else did something beautiful and they can't or don't want to is, as my teenage daughter tells me, that's a you problem. So the host of the bar mitzvah should do whatever is right for her family. And the child really should be the one that it revolves around. So you have a son who's very dynamic and very unique. And there's so much there for you to make his bar mitzvah one of a kind, tailored to him, something he'll really enjoy and appreciate and always remember. It shouldn't be like anybody else's. I made a few bar mitzvahs already, Baruch Hashem, and each one was different in a different location. I had one child who was super shy and couldn't get up in front of people. He wanted nobody to come. That was a really small, casual bar mitzvah. And another child who's a performer and wanted to be in front of a crowd, we invited everybody and made a big event. So really, it should be for the child. And because you love throwing a party and planning and thinking of all the details and making things beautiful, you should get to enjoy that process too. It's for you. You brought this child to this day. So you get to celebrate how you want to celebrate. And I think the expectations don't belong. That just shouldn't be a part of it at all.
Okay, I love this message so much. First of all, thank you for seeing me and recognizing who I am and how I like to operate. It feels really good when people get you, you know? I feel like that's a universal feeling. And I agree with so much of this message. I really want to elaborate further, but I think I'm going to play the next voice notes and then at the end, like kind of recap of how I feel about all the different thoughts. So here's the next one.
Hey, Chavie, how are you? I hope you had a beautiful Pesach, and I hope you're enjoying New York. I definitely think the bar mitzvah culture has gotten way out of hand. I actually recently heard of a school that does a bar mitzvah package for the kids where you pay X amount of money and the school organizes the food and the decor and the music, and the whole class is invited for the whole meal, and the rest of the grade is invited for like dessert and dancing. The family's allowed to invite X amount of family members, and it's just like very regulated, but apparently still beautiful. Like the food is delicious, and like you're able to do your own ventures, and but like they organize it. You just like tell them like the monogram and this and that, and that's the party. And then, different people can do different things for their own kiddushes after the bar mitzvah. So I found that very great for many reasons, but I really I think that needs to happen. Like it doesn't need to be an occasion for everyone to have to spend tons of money, especially if they don't have it.
Okay, this is super interesting. I have a lot of different thoughts around like a curated bar mitzvah where the school like dictates how it goes for someone who really likes to be individual and do things differently. I feel like I would struggle with that. And on the other hand, like I do see the benefits of that. Oh, wow. I mean, there's really no right or wrong. There's so many ways to go about this. And I see the hard thing. It's not hard, but I see like really where everybody's coming from and why each approach has such validity to them. Okay, I'm going to play the last one and then I'm going to share all my thoughts.
Hey there, how are you? Hope all is well. Good luck with all the preparations. You're kind of a fancy gal, so, gonna make a fancy event, I'm sure. My first son said the whole mimer by heart, laying the whole parsha gorgeously. My second son was not as interested, so he did what he was able to do and wanted to do. So he said his mimer, some of it by heart, some of it looking in. He did not lane, I don't think. He may have laned the first aliyah, but each one, whatever they're able to do. So that's in terms of that type of stuff. When it comes to a party, it makes me like nauseous, especially I was living in Miami. I moved to Stamford, Connecticut on shluchos. But living in Miami for 15 years, it is so gross and nauseating what parties have become. A wedding is one thing, but even still, over the top, waste of money. Like, why? For what? So people could say, wow, look at how much money they spent on their flowers and their this and their that. I'm so against that. My boys' bar mitzvahs were like with no money and beautiful. I think it was more because the people that were there were beautiful. I figured out a way to get beautiful centerpieces for free or for very little. I really did it well on a very low budget at the time. And it was gorgeous, and I didn't spend much at all.
Okay. There's so much here. There's so much here to talk about. Okay, how am I going to say it all? Okay, bar mitzvah. So this is a very obviously timely and of the moment topic for me. My bar mitzvah is 3 weeks away. So I already know like what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I also just want to shout out to all of you who I just feel like are so invested in my journey and care so much and sending me so many thoughts and ideas and like their experiences with bar mitzvahs. And I feel really loved and I feel really cared about. And that means a lot. So thank you. So I do think it's very hard to say like a bar mitzvah should be one way. And as you've heard on the different messages, it's very true. Like if you are on shluchos and this becomes a community event, it's very different than living in a Orthodox community where there's bar mitzvahs every night and it becomes really overwhelming and hard to keep up with. And so I do think those are two different things. So that is something to really take into consideration. Where do you live? What are your circumstances? What is the goal of the bar mitzvah? I also agree with the bar mitzvah is about the bar mitzvah boy. And I feel very strongly that the bar mitzvah is also about the parents. Like it is such a big deal. I was talking to Chaim Shalom. We were reflecting as we're planning for the bar mitzvah and we're like, there's certain things that we're doing that Manny's very passionate about. And there's certain things that we're doing because we feel very strongly about. And I was telling my husband, I'm like, this is for us too. Like we made it here. We deserve to celebrate also. So I do think that you want the bar mitzvah to be 100% tailored to your child. I think it's so important to really understand what your child's abilities are, whether they're reading from the Torah, whether they're giving a speech, whether they're doing in Lubavitch, we do the mimer. So that thing needs to be catered to your son. You need to know who your son is and also know how much he can handle. You want the bar mitzvah experience to be something that they're looking forward to, that they're excited, that they're not so stressed out about. And also, there's parts of the bar mitzvah that you get to decide. Like, I'm not letting Manny decide the decor and every single detail of the bar mitzvah. Like that, I don't think is his place. He gets to decide things that he loves, things that he's passionate about. He gets to make requests. And in general, we are making the bar mitzvah very Manny vibe. But I do think that the parents get to decide and get to also understand that it's a celebration for the whole family. And as parents, like making it to the day of the bar mitzvah is a big deal. So yes, and I struggle with this idea of, oh my gosh, there's so many expectations and you have to keep up. So in order to manage people feeling bad that they can't do what everyone else is doing, we make like, oh, a standard. Like this is how the bar mitzvah has to be. Or like, for example, that school that she was talking about, like there's packages and this is what you get to do. And I understand the reasoning behind it. And I really want to make that very clear. Like I understand why that happens and why that could be very positive, especially when there is so much pressure. And maybe as an adult, we can rise above the pressure, but sometimes it's hard for the kids to see everyone else doing something and then their family can't. And it's really, really hard. Like I want to leave space for that. And I also want to say that there's something that doesn't feel right about that either, because why should every person have the same type of bar mitzvah? Why can't you some people have more means than others? That's just life. Some people can afford more than others. That's just life. So people who can afford more shouldn't be able to celebrate and spend their money on a simcha. Like, I don't know. There's something about that. And everyone has a different threshold of what's extravagant and what's not. To me, something might not be extravagant, but for to you and to you it is. Like, so who decides what's extravagant? Like my bar mitzvah is going to be, I very much hope, in very good taste. And to me, I don't think it's going to be extravagant, but it's going to be big. It's going to be an event. It's not going to be a little thing. It's not going to, you know what I mean? So I struggle with these blanket statements of like, what's extravagant, what's not, who decides, who like, and I struggle with putting everyone in the same box. Like if you have more means, like that's life. People have more than others. And I think the point is to really reflect inside of you, do something that aligns with your family. And at the end of the day, it's the energy of the bar mitzvah, not the physical trappings. So you can have a extravagant bar mitzvah and it might not have the most amazing energy, or you can have a very modest bar mitzvah and it has the most amazing energy. And guess what? You can have an extravagant bar mitzvah with the best energy. I think we like to think like, oh, if it's simple, it has better energy. And if it's extravagant, we lost the point. I don't think that's true. I think it could be true, but I also think like it could be amazing and extravagant in whoever's eyes, or it could be a big deal and it could also have amazing energy and you could also have your priorities straight. Just because you're spending a lot of money, I don't think means that you don't have your priorities straight. It could mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that. So I just think there's a lot of food for thought. There's a lot of different ways that people go about this. In conclusion, I agree that it could be very difficult to live in bigger communities and it's like keeping up with the Joneses, and then parents should be able to rise above that, but maybe kids can't. So I really understand that. And I also really struggle with the individuality being taken out of celebrations and also deciding that everything should be the same when we're not the same. We're not the same. So those are my bar mitzvah thoughts. Thank you for everyone who participated in your opinions. Just love it. And I will keep you posted as the bar mitzvah gets closer. I will take you guys along as much as I can. See you soon. Okay, so this podcast does not happen by itself. The magic takes a whole group of amazing people, and I want to tell you who those people are. So obviously, I'm your host, Chavie. Our producer and creative director is Eli Ben-Chion. He keeps me on my toes. He makes sure that I just keep growing and am on point and don't miss a beat. He's the best. Audio is edited and mixed by Reed Seeley. Also, unbelievable. He's so cool, calm, and collected. You kind of need that working with me. And the music, which is beautiful, is by Basia Schechter and Shaul Magid. And this is Totally Unexpected.